because of the lack of education, what we end up seeing is whether it's a properly set up business or a major coming in, there's a frustration with manpower, with resource. So what is your biggest frustration with, let's say, talent managers and creative entrepreneurs?
I think it's the lack of trying to understand, because I think one thing now is like we're drowning in so much information, but there's no understanding. Like the understanding that you have from, like, somebody will go now and just Google one term or one thing, and which is the way I guess a lot of people are learning now. But it's like you need to understand that there's, especially in this music business, there's context. It's human being as an artist. Artist A doesn't really react like artist B. It takes actually going through that and learning that thing. So that's my thing, where it's like a lot of people are now coming into the industry
from Google,
feeling like, oh, I know what a contract is. I know what this is.
So I was having a conversation with somebody recently, and he was like, oh, that he sent me a contract for his artist, and I said, I can tell you the website
that you got
this template from. And he was like, no, boss, but it's a contract. I said, no, there are different ways to approach it, right? But what are the terms you and this artist have agreed? Discuss that, understand the artist, and then build your contract around those terms. So even if you're sending it to your lawyer, you will say, here are the terms we've agreed. They now put the necessary clauses around those terms.
So it's things like that I'm talking about, where it's like that's a frustration, where it's like you now are talking to a lot of people that feel like because they watched
Entourage,
or went on Google or heard one quick snippet or this thing, it now means that they know and everything. There are those people, and then there are the people that maybe passionately want to know or are just misplaced. They've heard there's a thing called A&R or a thing called PR, and they ask, okay, what is that about? And they then say, okay, you know what?
So it seems like there's money there.
There's money there. Let's just jump into it. So there are those two types of people that I feel like, okay, the ones that have some information. I don't want to call it knowledge, but have not really taken time to understand that there's a mechanism that you need to to refine that.
A typical way to explain it, especially for people watching, is there's a benefit of the school system. So what school does is, what school is supposed to do is it checks information that gets to the students and puts it in bit sizes so that it's easily chewable and digested. Right? So it takes you time. They tell you do your first term, second term, or your first.
And they examine you. And they examine how much you understand it.
Exactly. So there's that. Now we have that. That process is slow to adapt to changes as business changes. Is slow, but then you now have the internet, right? That has no checks. And everybody can just do what they want to do. And I think one of the most important things, even in businesses, in creating policies for staff, is figuring out how to merge those two worlds. Where we bring in a new staff, this is how we can train the person to understand, even whether it's my training program or it's a basic internal system that's set up to ensure people are learning. I feel like if more businesses are doing that, most of these young guys who are coming in are forced to interact with their peers within these systems, and they would be learning from that. And I feel that's one way we can grow. That's why I asked it, because we have to consider the fact that we're all different in our approach to doing this. I've learned to be a little more outspoken in the last 4 years. But the thing is, we have to find a way that collectively we're educating these young guys in whatever. I know you started this thing, even if it was very private, but you started something where you were engaging some young people.
So I started open house as a way of reaching out. First, I even started for just artists first. Then I felt like, okay, you know what? Because some artist managers or people that wanted to be talent managers or whatever also were reaching out and sending their thing in. So like, we're going to expand it to talent managers too. It's just a basic, like, because usually I like to set aside like one day a week to kind of listen to new music, discover new artists and everything. So I was like, instead of me doing that, let me use it as a platform to educate or reach or see or be able to just give back some kind of knowledge that I've been able to acquire. So I would we'll have a process, people sending their music or their CVs, we call them in, we talk to them. Another thing we started doing was like, okay, since we're now speaking to artists and speaking to artist managers, one thing we found out that a lot of the artists that we're bringing in and having conversations with didn't have proper structure or a team behind them. And I'm like, okay, we don't have the we can take on some of these smaller artists, but in terms of like return on investment and the manpower and everything, stretching our manpower, we can't do that. But okay, we can now maybe pair. I think I also reached out to you about pairing some of the artists that we're finding to manage. So it's like, okay, there's a pipeline or ecosystem that we're building where it's like, okay, here, this guy needs a manager. We found this young guy that can also manage you. You guys are at the same level. This guy is passionate, he's hungry, he understands your music. You guys can grow together and everything. And then we will be there as more of like a big brother trying to watch and supervise and say, okay, you know what, we'll make sure the manager is doing what he's supposed to be doing and everything like that. So that's a way that we are trying to kind of educate and impact the next generation per se.
Fantastic.